everyone. Welcome back to another Marketing Minute with MSDW. I'm excited to be joined once again by Adam Berezin to talk about today's topic, which is webcasts, whether we're seeing webcast fatigue with MSDW and how to combat it and make sure that you have the best tips and tricks to ensure that your webcasts are productive, educational, and serve the purpose that you hope they do. Adam, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So Adam, of course, MSDW has been running out or putting out a lot of webinars in the past, some of them being roundtables, some of them being more direct videos. What trends are you seeing and how have you navigated the shift from some people doing online events to almost everyone doing online events to now going back to a hybrid world?
Great question. So just a little bit of context around this. So we run about, I'd say, between 150 and 160 sponsored webcasts a year. The sponsors of those webcasts are the ISVs and the partners that occupy the business application space. We see a lot of trends in these videos, webcasts, I should say. And, I would say that the biggest thing that we've seen is the types of webcasts that we essentially can tell immediately if they're going to perform well, and those that we could pretty much tell immediately that they're not going to perform well. And there's a couple of elements that I think are really important for making or creating successful webcasts, especially in our space, because we do application space is a large space, but it is still a niche market. And it's an ecosystem unto itself. So, a couple of things that I find are the most important is that you have to make, like any piece of content, you have to make it focused and directed towards a very specific group of people in this space. So as an example, if you have a reporting solution and you're an ISV and you want to do a webcast and target, let's say, D365 Finance users who are interested in a reporting solution and that are in the manufacturing industry. You want to create that webcast content, which includes the title and the summary paragraph about it, so it speaks directly to those people. You don't want to go in to the exercise and create a webcast that just talks about reporting in general and then direct it to a target audience. You want to have the content be targeted, and then the audience that you want to reach, you want to be able to target that specific group as well. So both of those things have to line up. We've been running webcasts for, I'd say, probably 16 years. And, back in, 10 years ago, let's say, you could get away with running broad-based webcasts that would still, drive a good amount of registrants. Since COVID, that has changed, and you really have to be sure that you're targeting, that the content you're creating is as targeted as possible to your desired audience. Otherwise, it's just not going to be consumed. And that goes for all types of content, whether it's articles or blog posts or white papers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because now you're competing for people's time more than ever. And you have to give them a reason to consume your content, in this case, webcasts. And webcasts require a lot more attention than simply reading an article or reading a blog post. So you have to make sure, it's even more important, I would argue, that webcast content is more targeted for that specific reason, because you don't just want people to see it and want to register, but you want them to attend as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think that's a good point that we need to come back to, the difference between registering and actually attending. But when it comes to targeting, you mentioned an important distinction between targeting your content, but then also targeting how you reach out to the specific audience. And I think that's something that a lot of partners and ISVs will struggle with, because they don't know where this audience of, let's say, folks in construction who are SMBs and maybe interested in reporting solutions.
Yeah.
Very targeted, but they don't know how to reach them. What advice would you have for these partners and ISVs?
So the trick is, no matter what type of content you create, but webcasts specifically, they have to be promoted on the correct platform where your prospects are. Otherwise, you could have the best webcast title, you could have the best webcast abstract, you could have the best content that you're going to show off during the webcast, but it doesn't matter if it's not reaching the right people. So, I'm a little biased here because we have a platform like this, but I mean, that's one of the reasons why we created it, because it is a platform that, over 100,000 organizations in our space go to regularly. And if you're an ISV or a partner and you want to run a webcast, you need to use a platform like MSDW as an example, because we can hyper target to reach very specific audiences. So in the example I gave, if you're a reporting company and you want to reach out to, let's say D365 Finance users in the manufacturing industry who are interested in a reporting solution, we have that data. So, therefore, when you create a webcast that speaks to those people and then it's being promoted to those exact people, the probability that your webcast is going to be consumed and that they're going to interact with it and attend goes way up. So, where you choose to promote your webcast is just as important as the webcast content itself, I would argue. Probably content is a little bit more, because you want to make sure that it really speaks to those people. But targeting is almost just as important.
That makes sense. And Adam, you mentioned the shift since COVID and during it. How has that been felt on the MSDW side? Are you seeing any dip in the attendance numbers, in the registration numbers?
Well, we really haven't. I actually, back in April, I analyzed actually 2 years worth of our webcast data, because I was curious about that as well. And I wanted to challenge the perception that webcast fatigue is out there. And it's definitely out there in other markets. As far as on the MSDW platform, we don't see it. In fact, we've actually seen, as an example, we've seen about a 29% increase in registrants year over year, about 23% increase in attendees year over year. I think the average attendance rate that we get for our sessions is around 60%, which is light years above the industry average. We also see the on-demand webcast leads and people that consume the on-demand videos once they go into our platform after the session airs increase exponentially as well. I think last year had about a 63% increase from the prior year, which is huge. A big part of that is because we are such a targeted platform, and we can get so granular with who we target on behalf of the ISVs and partners that run these webcasts with us. And I think without that, you probably would see some webcast fatigue, because then we'd just be sort of a general platform where we're just promoting and hosting webcasts. But because we combine the niche platform that we have with our targeting capabilities, that is a recipe or a formula for successful webcast consumption.
That's incredible.
You don't see it at all. And honestly, even this year too, if I take a look at from April through where we are now, end of September, compared to the same time last year, I mean, we're way ahead of where we were, and that's running the same amount of sessions too.
I mean, there's definitely something to be said, I think, then to not only how you're delivering the content and how you're helping ISVs and partners tailor their content so it suits the audience that you have, but also the trust level in having a platform, I think, is also a significant bump up. here, especially if you are an ISV. Let's say I'm an ISV that builds AP automation solutions. If I only market to the same audience, and I am constantly talking about AP best practices for manufacturing companies, of course, my best practices are going to be ones that are related to me, but I think having it on more of a neutral platform like MSDynamicsWorld does help lend a bit extra credibility, especially if I am a third-party ISV that is just entering the Microsoft space.
I agree with that completely. And that's, as I mentioned, as I kind of mentioned previously, that's one of the main reasons why we built MSDW, is because, way back when there was no dedicated marketing platform for ISVs and partners. And we wanted to build that because we saw a real need for that. And that need still exists today. So, I'm not overly surprised that companies have success with us just because, we built this really great platform that can hyper target specific audiences in the channel. So, it's a really good vehicle for these companies to promote their webcasts and other content and, position themselves as thought leaders and experts. And then at the same time too, we're providing our site members with valuable content that directly relates to, their specific industry, the Microsoft product they use, their business needs and focus areas. So it's very well aligned.
That makes sense. And I think it's a great opportunity for ISVs and partners to make use of it. Adam, as we're wrapping up, any other tips or tricks that you have for webcasts that you would recommend partners look at?
One big thing that I always, and I'd say over the past couple of years, I've really started to kind of encourage more and more ISVs to do this, ISVs specifically. A lot of companies, when they do a webcast, they're hyper-focused on the functionality of their product, okay? And I get that. And that's, that's good and it has its place. Or they're hyper-focused on their other ISV competitors. What I think that they should really be focused on is being top of mind for users of the platforms that they integrate with, so that these users do not try to milk all the native functionality out of their existing Dynamics platform. Sometimes that can have dire consequences, especially, and we'll use reporting as an example. Like if you take a look at Business Central is good for a lot of different things, but it doesn't really have good advanced reporting capabilities. So if you're an organization that needs that and you're just trying to use Business Central for it, it's at the detriment of your organization. So that's why it's important for ISVs to focus on how they compensate for the lack of native functionality within the different platform or platforms that they integrate with. Because at the end of the day, they are competing against the platform first and foremost. So they have to make a strong case. And webcasts are a great way to do that because you can show the inner workings of, let's say, GP or Business Central or, FNSCM and then talk about, where your solution kind of fills in those gaps within the different modules or relevant module in that platform or platform. So that's my biggest piece of advice for ISVs when it comes to making webcasts.
That's a really good point. I think very often we can miss the fact that the biggest competition is the status quo. And that's because of the bias, to go back to it. So I think that's a great tip. This one and all the others that you shared today, I think are great insights, Adam. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm excited to see many, many more webcasts on MSDW in the coming year.
Great. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.